Welcome to this live stream. Happy day after tax day. That's well, hold on. I realize you probably can't hear me on YouTube. Let me put these in. Happy day after tax day. Did you pay your taxes? And the bigger question is, are you happy with how your taxes are being used? I'm not. I'm not in the least. Anyone who digs a little beneath the surface is probably super sketched out by how the government's using their taxes. I know I am very sketched out. This is why when people say, what can we do? I'm certainly not recommending you don't pay your taxes by any stretch of the imagination. However, where you do have power, where you do have some degree of control, I would exercise it, right? Like in 2020 and 2021, when the gov comes and says, hey, we care about you. We really want you to do this thing. And nothing they've ever done has been ultimately for your benefit. It's all been to enrich their colleagues in the military industrial complex, etc. If you know that, then you're going to be like, you know what? No, thank you. Thank you. No, thank you. So exercise it however you can, but and also do research. Taxes are crazy. I'll tell you something else. It's the one time of year where people get angry, and then it sometimes seems like they go back to sleep, and they're like, well, I guess I can't do anything about it, so I'm just gonna, go about my business. And one thing that I think about all the time is, if Americans didn't have so many bread and circuses to distract us from the bullshit going on in our country and in our world, this would be a whole different game. This would be a whole different game, my friends, if we didn't have so many distractions, which is all by design, right? If we didn't have so many distractions distracting us from what they're doing with our taxes, who they're doing it to, who's getting rich off of our taxes, how bad it is eroding the lower and middle class in America, people would wake up. But they don't, because they don't generally look into that until it's property tax time or federal income tax time or state income tax time. There's an awesome video. I'll probably be sharing it on my social media at GMarkPhillips about taxes. And it's a cartoon, and the guy's like, okay, you're going to tax me on my income pretty heavily, right? 20 to 40%, maybe 20 to 50%. You're going to tax what's left of my money when I buy something. Anything, you're going to tax me on that. You're going to tax me on the investment income that I make. If you make any money, if you have a piece of property and you sell that property, you may be paying capital gains taxes. If you make investments, again, this is on the money that you've already paid. They already took 20 to 40%, maybe 50% of people's money. They said, okay, the rest is yours. So you invest that in stocks and bonds, and then you make a return on that investment, and they tax that shit. It is wild how much taxes people, how much they really tax us if you really break it down on paper. Taxing is the name of the game. And what happened when America was founded, from what we understand, right? I'm always skeptical of history, but we were rebelling against taxation without representation, right? We were being taxed heavily, and we're like, you guys aren't representing us. What's happening now? I feel we're being taxed without representation. So much of our money that we do not have, remember, we're 33 trillion in debt. So much of our money that we do not have is being sent overseas in sketchy scenarios to do Lord knows what with. I know a lot of it goes into, what is it? 50, 60% goes into sustaining our military. Maybe more. The last time I checked years ago, I think it was well over half, and I want to say 60% goes into sustaining our military. That's an enormous toll on the American people. And what that does is that secures the dominance of the dollar in the world. right? What that secures the dominance of the dollar in the world. And of course, what that at enormous cost to Americans, but what that does is keeps the people that are really running our country, right? Keeps them wealthy, keeps them in power, keeps them able to push their thumb on other people. It's wild what's happening. When people finally peel back the surface and look at what our government has been doing under the guise of freedom and democracy around the world, they will be appalled. They will be appalled. I sometimes joke that, again, back to the bread and circuses, it's a good thing that Americans have bread and circuses, because if we didn't have bread and circuses and Americans really saw what our government was doing in the world, they would have a traumatic experience. They would have a literal mental breakdown of the horrors and corruption that our government is facilitating on their behalf under the guise of freedom and democracy. But many don't know it because of the bread and circuses, the distractions, the entertainment. Entertain the masses, and they'll never ask questions, and they'll never go looking, and they'll never dig deeper. And also, I think people know on a subconscious level that when you dig, you may find some horrific things that you don't want to see, right? If you go to therapy or you go to a counselor and you untrench some shit that's unpleasant, and you have to sit with that and you have to look at it, that's not a fun time for some people. And I think people know that. And they're like, well, I'm just going to continue to indulge in bread and circuses, eating good food, satisfying my stomach, satisfying my mind, and distracting myself from the bullshit, you know? So taxes are being spent all around the world. You know, we send 3-point-something billion to Israel. And I posted the other day on my social media at Mark Phillips, a quote that Joe Biden said back in 1986. He said, if there weren't an Israel, we'd have to invent an Israel to protect our interests in the area. And I clarified our interests as multinational corporations, the 1% essentially, and we know that Israel, the brainchild of Israel came from the Rothschilds. And of course, it's a triad. It's a win-win-win for the Rothschilds, America, and Great Britain, because they get a footprint in that area and they control oil, they control diamonds, they control probably other industries that I'm not too familiar with. I know those two are very big, specifically the oil. It's wild. It's wild. And I try to compel people to look into this, because what happens is it's like an alligator or a beast. The beast grows and grows and grows and grows, and then eventually it's too big to tame, and it consumes you. Your pet alligator that you did not look at for decades and decades gets too big, and it consumes people, and the snake eats itself. And I think that's what we're seeing now over the last handful of years, and you can fill in the blanks with what I'm talking about. But I ran across a document called Silent Weapons for Quiet, WARS, the other day, and you can get it at archive.org, and I highly recommend people download that, because it's fascinating. It gives you a mental picture, a mental game plan of what's going on in the world. Because if you look at the things happening in the world, the money going out of the United States, well, while we have people living on the streets, we have homeless problems, we have many states, our federal government's in extreme debt. Many states are running at a deficit. The federal government is sending money to these states to keep them propped up, especially the blue states, because many of them don't do a balanced budget. If you live in a red state, there's a high chance your state balances the budget. But when your government, federal government, takes $42 billion and sends it to California in 2021, I mean, they probably do this every year. They did it during COVID times. $42 billion of your federal tax dollars goes into California to prop up the bullshit that's happening down there. Americans pay for that, right? And then let's not even forget about. So we talked about income tax. We talked about sales tax. We talked about capital gains taxes on your investments that you make after the government taxes your money in the first place. I forgot about the most insidious tax of all. Inflation, also known as many call it the invisible tax, because people don't see it. It doesn't come out of your paycheck. You don't have to to claim it on your taxes when you make, you don't have to, no one talks about it, no one sees it. But what's happening now, because inflation is because because the government is spending so much money that they do not have, they're printing it out of thin air, increasing the money pool in the system, that is devaluing the money in you and my pockets, making it go less. That is inflation. That is a hidden tax on Americans. And because of our education system, many Americans don't really understand the concept and the ramification. Remember, who was it that said, I want to say, I can't remember the gentleman's name at the point, but it was something to the effect of this. I think he was a French guy, and he said that if you keep people ignorant, like something to do with ignorance and ignorance in education or ignorance in the government, but if you keep people ignorant, they'll never revolt. Like they don't know why things are so bad. Many people don't know, and then what happens is the media comes on and says, "Hey, those guys are making the problems." And the minds are so, and I hate saying this, but the people are so, have an inability to critically think about what's happening in the world, or have an understanding of knowledge, or have an understanding of economics, or how taxes are, or what inflation is. They just believe whatever the media or government tells them. It's super dangerous, super dangerous. It's like if you keep the people dumb, and I say that with love and affection because I'm a people too. If you keep people dumb, they don't understand how things work in the world, and it's like, oh shit, it's super, super dangerous. Like education leads to freedom. Education leads to liberty. Education leads to having a better life. And many people, unfortunately, because of the education system, it depends on the state you're in. Like look at what the kids are learning now in the education system with all of the social BS and all of the, it's just crazy right now. And those kids go into the workforce. If the United States is still around when that generation gets in, we are straight up doomed. There's nothing you can do. Knowledge is power. And if you have people that don't have basic understanding and knowledge about how the world works and true knowledge, true valuable knowledge, they are straight up screwed. And that is going back to that document, the silent weapons document that you can get on archive.org, Silent Weapons for Quiet, WARS. It talks about that. You attack them in the education system. You attack the mind and you dumb them down. You attack the food industry, right? And you dumb down the food, so to speak, dumb it down, make it not, pull the nutrients out, pull the goodness out. Also teach people, oh, you should be eating these things and not these things. Of course, they're going to say, eat the things that make you weaker and dumber and fatter, and don't eat the things that make you smarter, because again, it's a war on humanity, I believe. So you get them in the education system, you dumb them down mentally, you dumb them down physically with the food system, you dumb them down information, and you also subvert them through the movie and the music industry, right? You turn them on themselves. This is why you have people that freaking music is super powerful. Music and movies are super powerful. Media is super powerful. And though there's subtle ways to lower vibration and to lower consciousness and to actually train the mind. I mean, that music, I think, is designed in such a way to build tension, build anger, build angst, and then they direct it out to anyone around them, quite frankly. Anyone around them, quite frankly. And it's a silent weapon for a quiet WAR. Wild. It's wild times. And then, of course, financially enslave them. Right? Oh, borrow all this money. First of all, borrow the money to go get a BS education at a higher university. Depending on where you go, it could be worth less or more, depending. Spend a bunch of money doing that, maybe party and buy things that aren't going to, be assets for you. And that can further restrict you. And it becomes kind of handcuffs. It handcuffs you financially to the system, to the beast system, so to speak. And then you're basically a financial slave. I sometimes think about this all the time. Look in the animal world, and the animal world is, it's a wild place. You see critters doing all sorts of heinous shit to other critters. However, in the human world, we're much more sophisticated about it, right? We're much more sophisticated about it. We do those things. Some people do those things to people via financial, right? Why KILL another person when you can enslave them financially? and reap the rewards for a whole lifetime. And many people don't understand they're enslaved financially. Some good books that I recommend to people are Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robbins and Joe Dominguez. That was a super popular book. I want to say maybe back in the late 70s, early 80s. It basically is like, hey, if you look at your life energy, life investment cost of what you're doing and how you're doing it, are you getting a return on investment? Like, are you living the life you want, or are you just making money and unconsciously spending it on certain things that don't enrich your life, right? The hour that you give of your life, is it worth the money that you get from it? It's a question everyone has to answer. Or, and then you look into the voluntary simplicity movement, and I wish I could remember this gal, but her and her father lived together, and they basically were completely off grid, so to speak. They made all their own stuff. They foraged for their own food in a city type environment, no less. Many people are going back to that, and as much as they can. This is why you're seeing all these off-gridders, and you're seeing all these homesteaders, and you're seeing all these people that are growing garden and canning. Many people are going back to that lifestyle because they realize that it is a hamster wheel on the other lifestyle. And they're cashing out of the system, so to speak, to the degree that they can, and saying, peace out. It's been real, but I don't want to play your game anymore. And you know what? I don't blame them. It's not a game that people can win, that citizens can win, because it's stacked in their favor. Again, they're going to print money out of thin air. They're going to raise your taxes whenever they want to. They're going to find, quote unquote, rich man's tricks in order to get what they need from you, right? They'll just take it if they need it, right? They'll do an eminent domain if they need it. So playing their game ultimately, no bueno. I was thinking about something else related to that this morning regarding G. Edward Griffin. G. Edward Griffin had been talking about this stuff for probably 60 years. And in an interview he did on Stansberry Research a year ago, he was talking about this idea that when our society's prosperous, when our society's abundant, and this gentleman did a study of hundreds or thousands of years back in history, and they noticed that societies were most prosperous and most abundant, like America was when we first began, when government was small and or ineffective, and they left the people alone. Then they noticed these pockets, these like bubble up of prosperity and abundance in societies and countries. And when governments were strong and or big, society did not prosper because they're meddling with people too much. This is why some people call what the US did the 5,000-year leap, with the innovations that came about and the inventions that came about and the prosperity and abundance that came to the Western world. And speaking of the US, you still go to some third world countries and they don't have many of the amenities that the United States has. Now, I'm not saying that many of those amenities are all good, right? Or that we should be living that way, because we all know that sometimes in America, people create stuff and sell it to us that is actually not good for us. Let's talk about some of the shoes people wear. Not natural for the foot to be bound up in that kind of I call them foot coffins, to be honest. And I sometimes see the people wild. Maybe people don't need to sleep on 2 mattresses and all this jazz. Maybe people don't need to have all these, conveniences and or things. But that's for another topic. But the idea was with the United States is the 5,000-year leap was innovation and invention and creating things. Now, if you do it from a higher state of consciousness, those things are in alignment with human beings and they're in harmony with human beings and bolster health. If you don't, you get, people just making money off people, and then you get into the idea of the story of stuff where you're mining the raw resources, you're putting it through a factory system, and in many cases, within months from the time the resources are mined to the time they're thrown back into the dump because it's a piece of garbage thing, you're talking, it could be months. Sometimes life cycle cost is a year. And then you want to be conscious about what's going on in the world. You want to be conscious about what you're consuming and creating. That's why it's so important to create things that are, from a conscious standpoint. That's the idea behind Focus and Flow, products and apparel for conscious creators. My sign's back there behind the thing, but it's focusandflow.co. And that is when you live consciously and create consciously, you know what you're going to be creating is going to be beneficial to mankind and yourself. When you're unconscious or out of alignment, there's a high probability you're going to create things that aren't beneficial. And I used to drink alcohol all the time. Make no mistake about it. And I occasionally have a glass of wine still. But alcohol, as many people are waking up to the fact, it's not beneficial in any way. Andrew Huberman talks about it. What's his name? Mike Dulce has a great video about it, talking about, because people sometimes say, hey, ask these fitness gurus, how much alcohol can I drink? And they all say, shouldn't drink any alcohol unless you want to weaken yourself, right? Unless you want to destroy yourself in some way. And again, I used to drink it all the time. I don't drink it much anymore, if any, because I want to have success in my life. I want to realize my goals and dreams. I don't have a picture of alcohol on my vision board. I have many other things on my vision board, and alcohol is not one of them. And so I'm like, why are you going to do this? Because it weakens you, right? That's doing something from a lower state of consciousness. But that's the idea, is like, that's one of the big things people can do to get out of the system, is to be conscious about what you consume, right? As you not only create consciously, but consume consciously. And this is what wealthy people do. They're buying assets. They're not buying liabilities. They're investing in themselves. Watched a fantastic video last night with Alex Hormozi, and Lewis Howes was interviewing Alex Hormozi. And it's something about how to get rich. You can probably find it on YouTube. They're in Lewis Howes' studio, and they're talking, and it's so interesting to see the mindset of these people that are operating at a high level. They think differently, they act differently. Like, he was talking about this idea of investing in yourself, buying courses, buying seminars, buying coaching, buying mentorship. And he said that's the best investment you can make, because when you invest in yourself, it could open up a different mindset or a different idea that may give you a huge return on your investment, far greater than what you paid for the course or the book. And you already know this, right? I mean, investing in yourself is the best return. But many people invest in maybe electronics and it's all about what you watch too. You invest your time. You could watch something that doesn't build you up or that does build you up. Not knocking entertainment. I watch it too. But what are you watching and investing your time? Where are you investing your money? What are you what are you reading? All these things build people up, and then you get out of the matrix, so to speak. And no one wants to be in the matrix. It's wild. It's wild. But check out that video from Alex Hormozi if you get a chance. He's also got a day in the life video as well. And that's super baller as well. I'm working on, it's very close, a digital product, life design system. It will be sold through the Focus and Flow store and on its own website, downloadable PDF. But the idea behind it is, when you create a system for living, right? A system for achieving your goals and dreams in life. And also, one of the components is helping people define their purpose. I've got 41 questions helping you find your purpose. That'll be in this guide coming up soon. You can follow me at GMarkPhillips anywhere on social media if you want to be made aware of that. I'll also announce it in a live. Very close to launching it out. But when you know your purpose, you'll know exactly what steps to take in life to create that abundance, because everyone has a different purpose. Everyone has different gifts and talents that God gave them. And you want to make sure that you're very pointed in using the gifts and talents God gave you to create and multiply your abundance in the world. One of the big helps there is the Ikigai, the Japanese reason for being, right? And let me see if I can get this straight off the top of my head. What are you good at? What does the world need? What do you love to do? And what can you be paid for, right? The Japanese Ikigai is a super awesome model for helping people understand what they should be doing in the world, or what their purpose should be if they want to live a happy life, right? To be ultimately beneficial to humanity, but ultimately benefit themselves too. And this is what happens. This is why I'm so down on the education system, is we do not teach children these things in the education system. Because remember, the education system, this is the conspiracy theorist in me, and I'm fine by saying this. The education system doesn't want people to know themselves, because if people know themselves, they don't fit as a cog in the system, right? They don't fit into the quote unquote beast system. And they may go off and do things. They may go off and build something that actually runs counter to the beast system and actually will pull people away. I mean, look at what's happening in the world. How many people are waking up in the world? It's because of the sharing of information and the awakening, the conscious awakening of people in the world, that the system is coming down. The house of cards is coming down, because they're like, oh, hey, it's not working for me or my family. And I've been doing this, I've been playing I've been playing by your rules for a long time, and I'm not getting ahead anymore. And so the people are waking up. I saw a fantastic meme a while ago. I wish I would have saved it. The top picture was a guy happy saying, you know what? I finally get my degree. I finally get into the working world, and I'm finally making bank. And he's happy. And it's sad but true. And the bottom picture is him crying again, saying, and then inflation hits, and then cost of living goes up. So you finally get ahead, and the system is structured in such a way that if you get ahead, it's very short-lived, because if they're going to catch up and start taking more from you. There's no way to get ahead in the beast system. There's no way. It wasn't designed for that. I saw another meme shared by a gentleman I follow on social media, Mario Arizon, Arrizon. And he was talking about how many people are wealthy. And again, I'm not knocking employment. I've done it before, and I may be doing it again. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying be aware of how wealth is created. I believe it was something like 70-something% entrepreneurs, 12% investors, 8% athletes, or maybe it was 8% celebrities and 4% athletes, 0% was employees as a general rule, unless you are a C-suite person, unless you are a high earner in that. But the percentage is tiny. The percentage is tiny. Even the tax system, back to taxes, even the tax system is not structured in a way to benefit employees. It's wild. I better plug in here. It's wild to me to see that many people don't realize that, but they don't. They just simply don't. And people are waking up. Robert Kiyosaki woke a lot of people up with his Rich Dad, Poor Dad books and his cash flow quadrant, right? Investors and business owners are where you want to be, right? Ideally, you want to get there at some point in time. And to my back to the guide that I'm going to coming out with, there's going to be a whole section on business as well, with many questions to help people identify, because you want to plug your purpose. Your ultimate purpose is better if it's aligned with your business. This is why you see people like Kevin Hart building off of his purpose, comedy, and then branching out from there. This is why you see people like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and I'm just using these examples as describers, building off of their purpose, how they're built. When I attended the 10X Growth Conference down in Vegas, right before the PANDEMIC, Danny Johnson was there, and she was talking about her ex-husband and The Rock, and they were saying that when he was starting out in Hollywood, they were putting him in roles that weren't in alignment with who he really was, that weren't in alignment with his true nature, right? His true character. And he didn't enjoy it. And also, they weren't making the impact that they wanted to have, right? People weren't watching him as much. What happened when he started doing role, because I guess she said he likes to work out, he feels better when he's bulking, and in those particular cases, he was maybe trying to go for roles that weren't, when he's working out, that didn't feature that aspect of himself, that is his core true nature, what he loves to do. Remember, back to the Ikigai, what do you love to do? What are you good at? What can you be paid for? And what does the world need? Like, if you align all those things in, you're solid, rock solid. When he started being himself and showing up in the world and doing what he naturally wants to do, feeling really good about what he's doing in the world, the roles changed and his success skyrocketed, right? This is wild. It is wild when you really look in and know yourself. This is why the Greek philosophers knew the foundation of life is knowing thyself. When you know thyself, you know what to do in the world, right? What are you good at? What resonates with other people? That's another good way. What feedback do people give you in the world that is unsolicited, and they say, hey, you're really blank, or you're good at blank, or whatever. Those kind of things, when you pluck that string, like John Ritter talks about, that connects us all, right? John Ritter was a comedian and, and an actor in entertainment. He was able to pluck the string that connects all of humanity. Everyone can pluck the string that connects all of humanity, and you do that in different ways. Maybe you're a scientist, maybe you're a chef, pluck the string with your food that you create. Maybe you're an artist, pluck the string with the painting that you make in your studio. Maybe you're a finance guy and you pluck the string by understanding financial vehicles and situations. Many ways to pluck the string that connects all of us. And when you pluck the string and it resonates with people, they tune into what you're doing. I think it's super fascinating. And also, I think it's the way to save the world, if that is a possibility, is for people to turn away from the beast system that is crashing down and turn back to God and back to their gifts and their talents and do their work in the world. It's going to take a leap of faith, like Steve Harvey says. You got to jump, right? It's not often pleasant, especially if you've been trained for many, many years in the beast system to constantly look to the beast system for your cookie. It's scary. This is why I encourage young people, if you can do it, get out as soon as you can and start getting scrappy and getting in that savage mindset of mentorship, looking within, knowing yourself, getting out a piece of paper and saying, okay, what are my gifts? What are my talents? What could I be best at in the world? I get that from Robin Sharma. What can you be best at in the world, right? What are you good at? What could you be better at? What skills, what strengths could you cultivate that will give you, that put you far above anyone else in that area, right? You definitely don't want to play your weaknesses. Unless you want to struggle your whole life, you definitely don't want to play your weaknesses. You want to make them so they don't hinder you by any stretch of imagination, but you want to play your strengths. Again, it'll all be in the guide. I'm very excited to share it with you. Look for it to come out very soon. You can also learn more about the Focus and Flow store at focusandflow.co. Thank you for hanging out with me in this live stream. Thank you for the thumbs ups. I appreciate you. Until next time, I wish you all the best health, wealth, and success. And don't forget to check me out on social media if you are so inclined, at G Mark Phillips everywhere. I share different things, different places. Until next time, I wish you all the best health, wealth, and success. Have a super awesome day. Bye-bye.